Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Heroes Never Die, your one-stop spot for all things Overwatch. I am your host, Tumbly Drunk. At tonight, on episode 215, we're going to be taking a look at the most recent news around Overwatch, its competitive scene, and so much more. So before we get into the news and introduce you to my co-host, let me just quickly take a moment to thank anyone who is joining us tonight on Twitch for our live show, and of course to thank all of our repeat listeners out there. So joining me tonight, as always, is my co-host Edinar and Ed. We've had some interesting weeks here. I know we just had a community event in that I know Fran hosted. That happened very recently. That might have I can't remember if that was yesterday or it was over the weekend. Either way, a lot of tier 2 support on that front. Even getting advertised during the Overwatch League games over the weekend, which is really great to see. So a lot of fun stuff and interactions with that yet again. And we also have, a couple of things happening both on the PTR as well as retail. So while it's not like the heaviest news week, there's still some pretty big things to look forward to here, including, the next tournament part of the Overwatch League with the Summer Showdown coming up.
Yeah, we have the Summer Showdown coming up, and I think everyone's kind of excited for that. We definitely get to see this different style of gameplay there in regards to all of that. So, I'm very excited for this. Very, very excited for this. It's going to be a lot of fun, and honestly, I think we all kind of need it a little. just just saying, we all kind of need it.
Yeah, it's been pretty doom and gloom the past couple of weeks within the community. But let's take a look at what's happening in game. So as I mentioned, there has been a little bit of movement in regards to the public test realm, and there is a new patch that was deployed here since our last episode. And I know it's been like 2 weeks, but this actually dropped this past week. So in the update, this was more in regards to like interface changes, specifically when it comes to your career profile. And this entire profile really got a pretty nice facelift here. So in the update, you're now able to sort the player icons, whether it is by category. You're actually able to filter them based on what hero they're for, whether or not you own or don't own them. And of course, with that, there's also a filter for Pachimari icons too. So, if you only want to rock the Onion Squid, you can do so, and you can do so a lot easier rather than trying to cycle through all 8,000 that you own that seem to just be complete chaos as it is on live here. So, it's really just been a clusterfuck. I mean, for lack of a better word, in regards to just how everything was laid out within the career profile initially.
I was just gonna say, I had a chance to go and take a look at this, and it's actually really cool what they did on the PTR in regards to the icon sorting. Now I can find all my Christmas ones.
Mm-hmm. And if you want to match up with your squad, it's going to be a lot easier to organize that as well. So outside of that, in regards to the new updates for the career profile, they definitely made the experience there more streamlined. I know they did a lot of changes to the stats where it's more like tabular formatting, and you're able to separate things based off of like your averages, your best, your totals, and they even added like a game mode playtime in regards to the overview section, so you can keep tabs up how much time played you had. I don't even want to even begin to think about that. And outside of that too, like they kind of like reworked how they displayed the achievements, added filters so that as well, so you can group them by category. And like instead of like by the event or like hero roles, so you're also able to like filter them based on whether you have achieved them or not. So like for any achievement hunters out there, it's going to be a lot easier to kind of keep tabs of what you need to be working towards moving forward rather than, just like with the icons, having to cycle through all of this information that was just spewed everywhere, in months past.
Yeah, it had to be done. Like, let's be real. It had to be done because there is just way too much crap in the game at this point. It was manageable when it first came out. It is not manageable now because doesn't each like character now have like 90 different things they can have unlocked and unknown amount of icons and skins and yeah, like this needed to be done a while back. The game just let me know that it's actually updating right now, so I don't know if that's actually getting brought over as we speak or if there's something else, but hopefully it makes it over there real soon.
Yeah, so outside of that, a little bit of competitive news. The current competitive season, which is Season 22, that is coming to an end tomorrow. I know Season 22 is going to be ending fairly early. If I'm not mistaken, they said it was going to end at 10. No, wait, it's 12. It's noon Pacific time tomorrow. So with that, we also have the start of competitive Season 23, which is also tomorrow. At what time that's going to be, I'm not entirely sure. But it's important to note, like, this is actually going to be the first season in regards to beginning with no hero pools after all of the 18,000 changes that we saw within that system in months past as well. And thankfully, it doesn't look like there's going to be any return on the horizon for hero pools. So definitely going to be a different landscape moving forward in regards to competitive play. Now, again, like, if you guys haven't been keeping tabs of the recent updates, it also means, those most recent Genji changes have definitely been upping the amount of player usage we have seen with Genji specifically, so expect to see a lot of the Cyber Ninja moving forward, more so than what we have seen in years past. So, don't think we're going to get our placements in, Ed. At least for this season.
No, I don't think we're going to. I did play a couple matches today, so I got that going for me. But yeah, no, it is what it is. They competitive just doesn't have the same ring to it to me anymore. Plain and simple. Reason being that is there's no incentive. They've given no additional incentive to play ranked. Like, how many years have they been like, well, your incentive for ranked is a golden gun. Well, if you were doing ranked, you have all the golden guns plus stuff extra to buy any future golden guns for new heroes. If you constantly play it. So right now it's just like, okay, what am I playing for? A golden gun? And to be honest, a lot of like these guns are better off not golden. Like Ash's Little Red Riding Hood one, the gun for that way better than the actual golden one. So, but yeah, I am shocked and awed.
Maybe not as shocked as like the Fusion were after they just got absolutely dumpstered by San Francisco over the weekend. That was a yikes. But anyways, getting back to what's happening in game, we also had a new patch that was deployed to live servers here yesterday. That would be June 30th. So we got a couple of competitive updates that we need to talk about. So we now have some changes to the competitive card in the sense that now we have the role queue as well as the open queue that are both listed for the competitive mode. Obviously, they are different queues. So, role queue being what we currently have. So the 2-2-2 open queue being the, okay, everyone, all the DPS players that are fed up with having to wait in, 30 minutes for the match are going to go here or just go run goats or whatever they're doing over there. I don't know. I haven't played it. But I know a lot of people have been tweeting about just wanting to queue up to play goats. So obviously that's still a thing in regards to that specific queue. But they did make a change to seasonal placements for the higher SR players out there, which is pretty interesting. So they changed the max amount of skill rating that you can earn after placements, and they capped it at 3,900 SR. So they're still going to be matching you with players of similar skill, but they're basically trying to address issues that the skill rating decay tried to fix in the past. So with this, there was a lot of instances where someone would basically come in, they would kind of like do the bare minimum. So, they would play their 5 placement matches, and then they would just let it sit. And then they would just be that rank a lot higher than what they normally would be. So now all of those players that do that will be at 3,900 rather than, like low 4K in this case. And I've seen a lot of like pro players and a lot of the higher rank community talking about this. It does seem to be a fairly positive change for them. It's not going to like change anything in regards to like smurfing. Like, I don't think it's going to discourage people in that regard, but it is going to give these players kind of like more of a reason to actually play, so they can earn, the higher like SR rating, rather than, just seeing all these players coming in and then just stopping altogether really early on within the season here.
Yeah, this has zero effect on us. Zero effect on us. And yeah, I think it will hinder Smurfs a little bit at the higher end, because knowing that you have to actively build up your Smurfs to a higher account than what they have been at will be a hindrance in that regard. But yeah, I could care less about this change. It has zero effect on me and zero effect on the game. It really has zero effect on the game. It just means that the good players have to play a few extra games. Okay. Like, how about an MMR reset for everyone?
Yeah, like, this is, closest thing we have gotten to an MMR reset.
Yes.
At one extent, that wasn't, an accident like the other one that we got. My only concern with this is if they're capping all of these players at placements at 3,900, I feel like the variance in regards to the player rankings at these higher levels is going to be bigger, especially towards the start of this. So you're going to be seeing a lot of players that are at like this 3,900 cap getting matched with like the Grandmaster players, or even top 500 potentially. So it's going to take a little bit of time to kind of like work everything out. But, as you mentioned, doesn't really impact us, as we are nowhere near, 4K, let alone at, the max cap for the placements at this point. Not even close. But, with that, we also have the hero updates that got patched directly through the experimental card. And, I've seen a lot of people that have been talking about, like, the devs not really making changes and just patching everything through. And, like, I get that. Like, that's kind of like the same feeling that a lot of us had when a lot of these, like, balance changes were happening on the public test realm. Because nowadays, like, obviously the experimental card is there, more people are playing it, but we haven't really seen like the player-based data differential between how many players are actually playing it on the PTR at the time versus how many players are actually going in and using the experimental card. But either way, it continues like the quick cycling when it comes to the balance updates. So I myself like don't really have a problem with us really not seeing any changes and just seeing these things getting pushed through, because it does keep things pretty fresh, and they've been kind of pretty on the nose in regards to the changes. Now, some of them have definitely felt overstepped. I don't think we've kind of got to the point where, like, any one character is kind of, like, got it to the point where they're unplayable. But a lot of people are worried about Brigitte right now. And I'm still not sure quite how to feel about her current state at this point. So, as a refresher course, So with this patch, we had balance changes. So we got the Ash Dynamite cooldown being increased from 10 seconds to 12 seconds. And a lot of this was just done to the fact that, Ash's overall damage output had been, increased pretty significantly here in recent changes as well. So they toned down a Dynamite to keep more of the damage output focus on her actual rifle. That made a ton of sense. And with Brig, the big change was to the repair pack, where it no longer grants an additional armor health pool. And by that, they meant like the overheal aspect of it. So if someone is at full health and you throw an armor pack on them, they're not suddenly going to have like 25, 50, whatever armor like they would have in the past. And to compensate for that, they kind of tweaked the barrier shield a little bit. So the max health was increased from 200 to 250. They decreased the regeneration rate from 100 to 85 health per second. And then he also changed the cooldown when the shield is destroyed, increasing it from 3 to 5 seconds. And, everyone is kind of like looking at this and freaking out, being like, oh, they're completely gutted Brig at this point. But part of the reason there's been a lot of back and forth with this is because Brig is not specifically just like an enabler, but like she's also a disabler in her own right when it comes to like these flank DPS. So obviously you have like the shield stun duration when it comes to her shield bash. She's really good at peeling for her team, but at the same time with something like the armor pack, just throwing that on a Tracer and a Genji, especially with the recent Genji buffs, have only kind of exaggerated how potent some of these other balance changes have been, and it just immediately shot Genji up to being the most played damage dealer in all of Overwatch at this point. So I feel like right now, the dev team is definitely walking kind of like a fine line. I don't think this makes Brig completely unplayable, but it definitely adds more emphasis to thinking, where you're throwing your repair packs rather than just throwing them around, all the willy-nilly without a care in the world at this point.
Yeah, I mean, the same concept was done to Zenyatta back in the day when the healing orb used to just stay on permanently.
Mm-hmm.
So they just throw it on Tracer or Genji and forget about it, and you throw it on the flanking DPS. Well, that proved to be too powerful, and they got rid of that. This is kind of the same concept. It's not really something that is the best way to use Brig right now is probably you just concentrate on the 2 DPS and let the other healer worry about the tanks, because you're throwing your barrier, your repair pack on the flankers and giving them extra health, and they're getting around and they're doing all the work. So yeah, like, this is not a nerf to Brig, it's a nerf to flanking DPS. And the barrier shield changes, I don't think the barrier shield changes, I mean, I want to say it's overall a nerf to the barrier shield.
Well, like, the shield wasn't that good in the current state as it was either, because it would just break so quickly at like the amount of health that it had.
Yeah, so they added 50 health, but then they nerfed 2 other things about it. So it's like, I don't know if that's worth the 50 health. Like, slower regen rate, and it comes up slower after it's destroyed. That's fairly decent sized nerf. So yeah, like, I don't think this puts Brig in the unplayable level. It takes her out of being like the must pick level.
Mm-hmm.
So armor in this game as a whole is just way too effing strong. Right. And that is the hardest thing about dealing with balancing Brig.
Again, like, this isn't the first time we saw major changes to an armor ability. I mean, heck, same thing happened with the Brigida's other family member in Torbjorn. Like, yep. maybe it's just a family problem, I guess, at this case.
Yeah. People forget that Torbjorn used to be able to give out armor more than, Brigida did. Didn't Symmetra too? Wasn't her
there's
ult?
too many things about armor.
Wasn't her ult like a 200 armor on all characters, like all allies or something like that? It was done pre like Symmetra complete and utter rework. But yeah, they realized armor was a problem back then, and then they put Brig in the game.
Yeah, and another change
Awesome.
like this just makes me assume that they are going to just rework armor altogether, which will more than likely come with Overwatch 2 whenever that should hit. So after that, we have D.Va changes, which, the devs were basically like, we're aiming at making D.Va feel more fluid and responsive to play. And D.Va's kind of taken a little bit of a dive, but that's only really because we've been seeing more of like these double barrier compositions. So with D.Va, they reduce the movement penalty that you have with your fusion cannon, reducing it from 50% to 40%. They also lowered the defense matrix cooldown from 1.5 seconds to 1 second. And then we have the micro missile activation delay being reduced from half a second to a quarter of a second. So, I personally haven't felt like D.Va is not that fluid or unresponsive to play. So I don't really understand the reason behind it. But I think we've kind of shied away from the amount of variance that we were seeing in months past when it came to just a number of tanks that we were seeing in play, where now it's definitely felt a little bit more concise. But hopefully, with the hero pools no longer being in play here, we will start to see a lot more. But D.Va at this point, having that movement penalty reduction is definitely going to help. You're going to be able to do a little bit more of like the run and gun type of approach with her. So I'm looking forward to this, and it just ensures that I could stay more, in the action or in someone's face than I could in the past year.
Yeah, I mean, all of these are changes. I don't think they're gonna ultimately be like, okay, D.Va's a must pick, because a lot of the tanks are still super strong. And Double Shield is still very, very, very good in Overwatch. In its iteration right now, but this makes her very viable. I mean, there's really only two not really viable tanks right now, and that's Wrecking Ball and I mean Roadhog for sure. Roadhog not viable, but it's kind of like Wrecking Ball and Winston are. Winston more so than Wrecking Ball, because like with Brig, he's like jumps in, oh, and you're stunned, and you're dead. Sucks to be you.
Yeah, life of a main tank right there.
Mm-hmm.
So the other hero that they touched up on was Junkrat. So the concussion mine trigger delay was reduced from 0.15 to 0.1 seconds. And then the Reptile time to take control of Junkrat after you detonate was also reduced from 1.5 seconds to 0.9 seconds. So this is definitely more of quality of life changes for this hero. It definitely makes you able to do more concussion mine jumps that were kind of out of the question here due to the changes that they made to its projectile speed. So that should be a little bit more streamlined. But, on the lower end, I definitely feel like this is going to be more of an impact more so than the higher end, just because, in that gold range or silver especially, Junkrat, even still to this day, is one of the more prominent DPS picks in competitive play.
Yeah, and I think they have a fine line with Junkrat, because you don't want to make him too powerful. Because even though he may not be meta for the pros, he's still used quite a bit and used effectively. So if you buff him to where he becomes meta, then it becomes he's dominant throughout the whole game. I think Junkrat is probably in a pretty good spot. Could maybe use a slight buff, but nothing too drastic. And I don't think that's needed because he's not like the old Symmetras or Torbjorns or Bastions and stuff like that that aren't in the meta, but then aren't really played. And until they got reworked. Junkrat has not been in the meta, but has still been played a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So he doesn't need much. So maybe this will help. They might need to do one other thing, but it is what it is.
So looking at what is going on around the Overwatch League, not like a terrible amount here. We did see a recent promotion for the Los Angeles Valiant as they gave Pack-10 a new position. So the Valiant head coach is now going to be the manager for the roster for not only like the Overwatch side of things, but also the Immortals Gaming Club Valorant roster. And, you know, Pack-10 has been someone who's been the head coach for the 2020 season for the Valiant here. And Mike Schwartz, who was the Valiant GM, basically was like, you know, Pack-10 is going to solely focus on the competitive decision-making for both of these titles. And what I find interesting about this is we haven't really been seeing, like, these other organizations really doing things like this. And this isn't the first time we've seen that from the Valiant side specifically, because we have seen staff crossing over to other titles within the organization while they're still maintaining their relationship, you know, with the Overwatch side. Because I know, like, Goomba, who is one of the assistant coaches, has also been coaching the Valorant team as well. So it definitely kind of makes you wonder if double dipping like this is going to be detrimental to either team in this case, because there is something to be said about, you know, kind of spreading yourself out too thin. But, you know, for the most part, you know, the Valiant this year, you know, coming in not the highest expectations with all of the rumors around the team, but, you know, they have a very young team. They've been improving, and they've been one of the more fun teams to watch here, especially in recent months in regards to the Overwatch League.
Yeah, they've definitely been one of the more fun teams, and this isn't even double dipping. This is triple dipping. I don't like this move. I'm fine with him being the head coach and the GM of the Overwatch team, but head coach, GM of the Overwatch team, and GM of the Valorant team is too much. His coaching duties are probably going to take a hit because he's by de facto probably the coach of the Valorant team as well, because they probably don't have a head coach.
They got Goomba.
So Goomba is Goomba the head coach on the Valorant team, and the coach of the the Valiant, not Valorant. So he's the head coach of the Valorant and the assistant coach of the Valiant.
Mm-hmm.
Even though Goomba, no, I don't like this. Like, I don't like the assistant coach, head coach, GM
mm-hmm.
being too. I don't like that. That is too much of double, triple, quadruple, quintuple dipping there for me. Not saying that he's not worthy of it. I just think he will be stretched too thin. And you see it all the time in sports.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're not even sure he can handle being the GM and the coach of the Valiant, let alone GM, head coach, and GM of another gaming like team. So it's, yeah. I guess we'll see. We'll see if they hurt from it, but only time will tell. Or if the Valorant team just sucks ass. I guess we got to deal with that too.
Yeah, there's definitely multiple layers in this regard. So outside of that, obviously the big news this week is the upcoming Summer Showdown that will be taking place over the weekend. So we got two regional competitions, just like the May Melee. You know, you got the North America side of the bracket as well as the Asia side of the bracket. So just as
Asia.
just as a quick recap of how the tournament structure is working, we got no hero pools throughout all of the matches. Matches are going to be first to 3 maps, unless you are in the finals, which is first to 4 in that case. Then you have the higher seeded teams getting to pick the first map, with the losing team of each map getting to pick the following map after that. And again, like in case of a draw, the team that had picked the prior map will get to pick again. Now, so this will be taking place over the weekends. You got the Asia side happening, kick it off on July 4th. And then NA kicks off on Friday, July 3rd, in regards to their knockout rounds. So when we look at the matches that we have, we got a couple of knowns right now. So Asia, they have their quarterfinals. You got the London Spitfire taking on the Seoul Dynasty. We have the Guangzhou Charge facing the Chengdu Hunters. And then to cap it all off, we also have the New York Excelsior taking on the Hangzhou Spark. And again, there's one team missing from that, and that would be the top seed, being the May Melee champions, the Shanghai Dragons, who earned a bye, and they will be taking on the winner of that London Spitfire and Seoul Dynasty series. Now, Ed, I know, you and I both have our brackets filled out, and I have to say, I'm so happy that the league, reached out within the community and, went to Solomon, who, not only does a ton of stuff on a fast stream, but he's been the one who's been doing a lot of these bracket generators for a lot of community tournaments or, the other contenders, like LAN tournaments. So, always great to see him getting some more work, and, we'll definitely talk about the bracket builder in itself here in a minute, but looking at the Asia side of the bracket, my heart definitely sank a little bit knowing that London and Seoul are going up against one another, and then the winner of that faces the Dragons, so it kind of eliminates one of the key stories that we saw from the May Melee, where the Dynasty kind of just ran shot and made a little bit of a miracle run there that not a ton of people expected from them. So, repeat performances kind of out the window here.
I mean, it was not called a miracle run for nothing. You could still have one. I mean, I can see them beating the London Spitfire. Hell, I have them beating the Spitfire. Now the miracle would be beating the Dragons.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I think the same thing kind of goes for the Hangzhou Spark. They're a very different team, but they changed things too late, and now they're the 6th seed going up against New York. You know what I mean? So I think they're kind of getting the shaft there. It's just, that is just overall a super tough, bracket across the board. I think all 7 of these teams would be in the top 10 on the NA. The only ones I'd probably put in there from NA, the Shock and the Fusion, maybe Atlanta. Yeah, that's about it. I think everyone over on the Asia bracket would fill out the other top 10. So it's just an overall brutal bracket. So that's the perk of a bracket, though. You never know.
Mm-hmm. So I do want to talk about the NA knockout rounds really quick, and then we'll go over where to fill out a bracket, our predictions, and all that good stuff. So on the NA side, we have the Paris Eternal going up against the Dallas Fuel. We have a rematch that we actually just saw here this past week between the Florida Mayhem and the Houston Outlaws. That one was a very close contest. You got the LA Gladiators taking on the Washington Justice, and then we also had the LA Valiant versus Toronto Defiant, which was another fairly close contest the last time these two teams have played. So awaiting them after the knockout rounds, you have the top 4 seeds. Shock did earn the top seed, followed by the Atlanta Reign at the 2nd seed, Philadelphia Fusion, who got the 3rd, and Vancouver Titans at the 4 seed. And, I know when we talk about this, it's just well, half of those seem a little weird, right? Like, no one really expected Atlanta Reign to be one of the top seeds. Titans are starting to come together. They've been looking better and better. Granted, they were a little slow coming out of the gate here, but I don't think anyone would have predicted Atlanta or the Titans to get one of these higher seeds and essentially, just kind of like get a bye in this case. You're muted.
Dang it. Yeah, no, how are the Titans number 4? I just don't get this. But cuz whoever they play against is like, yeah, you're going to win. Yeah, they're going to win. Cuz even if there's an upset in the first round, they're not the first to pick who they go up against.
Right.
So it's like, okay, like let's say the Justice pull off a miracle win against the Gladiators. Vancouver's not going to play against the Justice. It's like whoever the Titans end up playing in the second round it's a gimme. And I mean, there are more intriguing matchups in the knockout round than anything. Like the Mayhem versus the I'm the shittiest organization in esports Outlaws. And Paris who versus Dallas, who is like, they're both the epitome of you have way too much talent to be this low. And the Valiant versus Toronto, that's probably a blowout. And same with the Gladiators. But the Mayhem Outlaws, Paris, Dallas are probably two of the more interesting matchups that we're going to get. And then every single one of them hopes that they get to face the Titans. And just roll the fuck over them.
Yeah, it all depends on who the top teams are going to pick there. Now, as we mentioned, you are able to fill out a bracket on the Overwatch League website for the Summer Showdown. They also have like a tab where you can view the leaderboard, so, correct predictions. And the leaderboards are probably going to be all over the place depending on, what team selections there are after the knockout rounds, because there's a lot of different, like, matchups you could potentially get here. So a lot of shakeups are going to be coming from that. But basically, when you submit your bracket, though, you can fill out your name, your Twitter handle and everything, and then you are able to actually look up brackets based on someone's Twitter handle. And, I know both of us today had filled out our brackets, both for the NA side as well as North America. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So looking at the NA side, we're in agreement here. We have tipped in favor of the Valiant over the Defiant, the Gladiators over the Justice. We're expecting Mayhem to hopefully come through with that 3-0 that they keep promising over the Outlaws, because they weren't happy about how they performed in that last contest, and, they want a little bit of redemption here, despite, them winning the last time, too. And we also have the Eternal over the Fuel. Now, I have to say, like, that Paris-Dallas game, I feel like at this point, everyone right now is just like, well, what the F is going on with Decay? Like, are the rumors true? Has he benched himself? Is he only playing Valorant? Is he not, competing in the scrimmages? Like, what's going on? We don't really know. And, lately, Sparkle is starting to, like, get his feet underneath him. Those Genji changes are live, going to be in play this week in the Overwatch League, so that could definitely change quite a bit of dynamics on that front. But when you get into the quarterfinals, that's definitely where the intrigue happens, because we don't know what the matches are going to be. So I know, like, for me, when I was, like, making my picks there, for the Shock being the top seed, after just absolutely steamrolling Diffusion, I was like, okay, what would the Shock move be? And I felt like they would definitely be going out and picking who they thought, like, would be a closer threat in regards to a mirror match. And by that, I meant more like the sniper battle. So I was like, all right, Ons versus XC. That seems like a pretty hype matchup. So I'm expecting the Shock to come out and pick the Eternal. Then I have the Titans uh, being stuck with Florida Mayhem because they would be the lower seed in this case, so they wouldn't get the pick. I had the Fusion and Gladiators, and then that would leave the Reign and the Valiant at this case. But I know ours are tweaked a little bit, primarily with the first couple of matches.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so like I have the Shock picking the Gladiators because this is probably one of those big flex moves that the Shock, because the Gladiators are definitely a fan favorite team, and the Shock are the kind of people who want to make a statement against the fan favorites. Be like, don't cheer for them, cheer for us.
Yeah, and I can definitely see the thought process behind them picking one of the California Cup teams because that's 2 out of the 4 teams. So
yep,
pretty good.
So
chance.
I can see that we have the Titans getting stuck with the Mayhem both each, and then I had Paris or Fusion picking getting Paris, just because I had the Reign picking Valiant. I think the Reign versus Valiant. I think some teams are still a little scared of Paris, because they don't know the sparkle effect, and especially the sparkle effect with Genji changes. So I think the Shock and the Reign might stay away from that when they can go against teams that they know more about. And then Philly is just like, well, we'll take Paris. They're the lower seed, and then Titans getting Mayhem. But I have, we have similar brackets though. Like, because I mean, obviously we both have the Shock winning, and we both have the Mayhem beating the Titans.
We do.
And then I have the Fusion beating Paris, and the Valiant actually beating Atlanta. So yours is pretty close though. I think we only had one difference.
Well, I mean, if you look at the brackets, like we still have the same final matches. Same with like the same pick for like the first winner between the Shock and the Mayhem. I actually tipped Valiant over the Fusion for the semi. So our actual final matchup is a little bit different. So I know you gave the nod to the Fusion to make the finals. I had the Valiant in this case. And, part of that for me is, like, I still feel like the Fusion are a really good team. But there's something to be said about the way that they were just completely dismantled by the Shock. I feel like it's definitely going to be in their heads. And Carpe at this point, especially if we're seeing, like, these Tracer duels, I feel like he's fallen a little bit behind. Like, I don't feel as confident in Carpe as I felt in years past, whereas, with the Valiant, I've been a lot more impressed with their DPS duo, so that's why I gave them the nod in this case. But either way, like, I don't think the Shock are going to be seeing heavy challenges here outside of that potential Paris matchup and, like, the Mayhem. But this is a team who, continue to improve. Regardless of who's getting fielded, who's getting benched, they're still dismantling all of these other teams, and it's just a very hard team to try to, dethrone or just slow down in the meantime. So, I feel like it's gonna be a harder path for the Shock to get to the finals, but the finals will just be an easier matchup overall for them.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, yeah. I think it just honestly just comes down to, is anyone going to put up a fight against the Shock?
It's a battle for second.
It is. It really is. Because Shock are the best team in Overwatch. I have no doubt in that. I think they're better than Shanghai. I think they're better than New York Excelsior. Better than any of the teams in Asia. Obviously better than any of the teams in NA. And it's truly a battle for second place. The only reason I went with the Fusion over the Valiant is I think the Fusion are very skilled,
Mhm.
and it's kind of like, to me, it's the young up and comers versus the seasoned veterans. And I think the seasoned veterans from the Fusion will win in the end because they've been on these big stages before. The Valiant players have never played to go into the championship game.
True.
At least not these Valiant players. So I think the Fusion will probably win that one and then lose the next round to the San Francisco Shock for obvious reasons. The Shock are really, really good. Really, really. Now, it should be noted that there are no hero pools for this.
Right.
So who the hell knows what we're going to get?
Well, there wasn't any hero pools last week either, and we saw a lot of double shield, tracer.
But were the Brig changes live?
No, but they're not going to be live for this either.
They won't be?
No, it's a Genji buff patch.
Okay, so the new Brig changes will not be live. Okay.
Correct.
All right. I'm still confused by all of that. Like, it's like, all right, we got a patch this week, but they're playing games this weekend, which will be on the patch from 2 weeks ago. What now? All right, so all right, then we'll get something a lot closer to what we saw this past weekend.
more than likely. So
more and more Genji play, which I'm fine with.
Looking at the Asia side of the bracket, speaking of Genji play, good chance we're going to be seeing it from New York. Okay, so obviously we got the gimme in the Shanghai Dragons because they're on a bye. Like, automatic point. Unless they just don't count it. Regardless, you can't get it wrong. So we differ a little bit here. I feel like the Hunters are a pretty obvious team to lose out. I feel for Chengdu. I feel like if we weren't split into regions, they'd be faring better. But it's been so evident to me that they are the bottom of the food chain in this region. Because regardless of how much, like, leapfrogging there is in the middle of the pack in this region, Hunters are, like, the most consistent thing for all the wrong reasons. And, despite how much DPS talent there is on the team, they still haven't really been able to match, like, that past success that they had when we didn't have, like, these hero pools or, the role restrictions. It just feels like they've been a team that has constantly been fighting from behind, whereas the Charge lately have really started to come into their own. This has been a team that has been tested. They have been going deep into these series. They've been winning quite a substantial amount of games here as of late in this region, too. And, there's a lot of reports, like, maybe they're going to be getting some of their players back by this tournament, if not shortly thereafter. So, now, I know we both agree on that match. The New York Hangzhou Spark game, we're both in agreement. We both have tipped New York in this case. And I have to say, Ed, the community reaction over the weekend to the New York game, specifically when it came to Hoxel, I was just laughing at, because everyone was, like, freaking the F out because Hoxel was being subbed in on the support role to play Brigida. And, the Overwatch League, stats guys, they release, like, a ton of, like, average over 10 minutes of, like, 7 or 8 categories. Hoxel topped, like, all but 2 of them, and it's just, like, you see, guys? But it's also, like, one of those moments where it's like, did you not actually watch Hoxel in that 3-3 meta when he was on Brig, and he was one of the best Brigs in the league? It was a good refresher course. But now we got these Genji buffs come in, and everyone is just kind of like, all right, here we go. What are they going to pull out? But I would be shocked if, like, they just continue to run, like, this Brig and not have Hoxel over on the Genji, unless they do something like have Who Are You on the Genji and still want to keep the Brig. That's the only time I could see that happening. But, Hoxel...
That is exactly my thought. I'm like, they don't have a shabby backup Genji player.
Right.
Like, if Brig is definitely going to be played, then you know what? It's not the worst idea to do that.
Mm-hmm. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. All I know is, Haxel has definitely been more prominent on the Genji. He's definitely had a lot more highlights in that regard as well. But, who are you's Genji isn't anything to sneeze at either. But, we are both expecting them to win. Now, where we differ is on that London versus that Seoul match. And you know what? Part of me is just... I have two sides of this. One, I'm a little bit bitter, right?
No.
Seoul has definitely been really hard to read this year. There's still been a lot of substitutions. And, London's been doing some wonky stuff too as of late. But, in regards to, fantasy, they've been doing me a solid with Bobble being really cheap and scoring big points. My issue here with making the picks for this specific match is what dynasty we're going to get. Are we going to get the dynasty that made that run to the finals in the main melee? Or are we going to get that dynasty that are basically just trying to force the Echo with Prophet when Prophet is just not good at the hero? Which I know is a surprise to many because Prophet is really good at basically everything he plays. But, Echo was never really one of them at this point in time. So, this is one of the coin toss ones. I feel like in the end, the dynasty have probably been a little bit more of a consistent team, but they also haven't been prone to making really poor coaching decisions, and it leaves me reasons to be concerned. So my gut pick was London. Of course, I'm going to be rooting for the dynasty in this particular series, but that's not the key difference that we have in our brackets. But how are you feeling about that particular match, knowing that, I know you too look at London and you're like, well, I don't want them to win because of our ongoing bet that we have.
I mean, I still picked Seoul Dynasty to win this one, and I'm gonna stick with that. Just for the simple fact of I think the skill with the Seoul Dynasty is something something you really have to deal with.
Yeah, I don't think we've actually seen these teams play this season, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
At least it's not an over.gg.
Yeah. Could be. No, not really.
No,
I just still think
have.
they're gonna win. That's weird. That is very weird. But I guess it is what it is. I still think that Seoul's gonna win.
Either way, it's a fresh matchup for this season with the regional competition, so I welcome it. Anxious to see who advances for that. But moving into the semis, we are both in agreement here. We have the Dragons moving on. Regardless of who they're facing, whether it is the London Spitfire or the Seoul Dynasty. Underneath that, we have the Charge losing to the New York Excelsior. But I have to say, if a team is going to make a surprise run, or what the perception of a surprise run would be, Charge are definitely going to be that team on the Asia side of the bracket. Now, with that being said, I know you think New York are going to take the crown for this particular tournament. What led to that decision here? Because Shanghai has basically just been run-shotting through this region for quite some time now.
One word, and his name is Haxel. I think, granted, what I said about who are you and all that stuff is fine and dandy. I still think that that Haxel will run rampant throughout all of this. So, yeah, I'm not too worried about it. To be honest, I don't think that it's going to be an issue for them to win this. I don't know. I guess I just have more of a gut feeling that New York is going to pop off.
I do want to note here, these two teams did play in the last tournament, and the Dragons 3-0'd NYXL. Now, before that, the other meeting was, you know, a 5-map series. That one also went in favor of the Dragons, but that one was fairly close. But that was, like, back in early May as well. So they beaten him twice within, you know, the past month. But I definitely feel like in regards to, like, this meta, New York are definitely going to be a closer contest compared to what we have seen in recent months against the Dragons.
Yeah, I completely agree. God, it's just going to be so interesting to see what they do. Absolutely. Very excited for this one, but I probably won't watch it because it's in Asia.
Yeah, and, you know, it's also a holiday weekend on top of that, so that definitely is going to play in effect. But, you know, outside of that, Ed, looking at, you know, all of the potential matches that we have, is there one particular match that you feel like would definitely be, like, the show stealer in this case, regardless of where you would have it in the bracket?
I think the one that's going to steal everything is Shanghai versus New York. And all of that. If I had to pick a guaranteed matchup, I'd say New York versus the Spark is probably going to carry everything. That would probably be my bet.
Yeah, for me, I think if we get the Shock versus Eternal, that one brings a level of intrigue that a lot of the other quarterfinal matches wouldn't bring. But, you know, I want to see who's going to look the most dominant. Like, is it going to be the Shock? Is it going to be the Dragons? Because a lot of these brackets out there have both of the teams winning. So I want to see an upset here. Like, I want to see not necessarily a changing of the guard, but just something that is going to catch people by surprise, whether it is a Miracle Run or, you know, one of these perceived dark horses taking it all throughout whatever specific region. Just so, you know, maybe one of these teams can make up a little bit of ground here as they get some bonus wins towards their regular season stand-ins.
Yeah, honestly, if I was to pick one dark horse team to win it all, it'd be the Mayhem. A reason being is, all right, you got to think. They go, if they follow what we have, they'll beat the Outlaws, fine. Then they'll roll over the Titans. And then they play the Shock. And that would be the big upset, is them playing the Shock. And if they beat the Shock, I think, you know, it's probably 40-60 shot that they beat, like, the Fusion. 50-50 if they play Valiant or the Reign at that point. So, like, Florida, if I were to pick one miracle team, it would be the Florida Mayhem. To just... Yaki has pop-off carry potential.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, so I'd say I would agree with you, Mayhem on the NA side. Guangzhou being the dark horse in regards to the Asia side of the bracket.
Can they be a dark horse if they're the 2 seed?
Well, yes, they played well in their qualifiers, but, you know, this is a team that's been brought to map 5 a lot.
Yeah, I get what you mean. That would be a miracle run. It's just funny to say, like, the number 2 ranked team is the miracle team.
Yeah, and to that point too, like, I'm even, like, looking at the standings. Charge actually have the 4th best record overall in the league. I didn't even realize that. They're 13.
I didn't realize that either.
But regardless, entering this tournament, they are the hot hand because I think they've won like 4 of their past 5 games at least. So looking pretty good. But either way, like, Asia region, who knows? Like, anything could happen on any given week, and, you know, we're always talking about the unpredictability of it. So, you know, who knows? Maybe this will finally be the week where the Dragons actually get caught off guard. And, you know, with a win there, Charge would be only a couple of games behind the Dragons at that point, if they are able to secure the Summer Showdown. So, big opportunity there.
I think the only one in the Asia bracket that I say have zero chance of winning would be the Hunters. I could legit even see the Spark going on. So, yeah, the Hunters have no shot though.
Yeah, I'm trying to find where the Hunters are in the standings overall. Looks like they are 18th with a 4-14 record, only above the Justice, who have 3 wins in their 16 games, and the Uprising, who have 2 wins out of 15 games.
Yeah,
that's rough.
Yep.
Oof. But anyways, definitely check out the Summer Showdown. Of course, enjoy your 4th of July. Hopefully no one blows off any fingers or anything like that should they be lighting off fireworks. But be sure to fill out your brackets. I don't know if they're doing like any sort of like contest or anything. At least I haven't seen that. But who knows? Maybe they might be showing some of the brackets throughout like the Overwatch League broadcast, since I know there was something on there about that as well.
Yeah. So what do you win if you get it 100% right?
I don't know. I didn't see like $1 million bracket challenge like we normally would get with like the Sweet 16.
Yeah, like Warren Buffett gives you $1 million if you get the Sweet 16 right, and nobody's ever won it. At least that's for any of his companies.
Mm-hmm.
So what do I get if I get this all right, Overwatch? You jerk asses.
Well, I guess we'll never know because your bracket's going to be wrong anyways.
20 Overwatch League tokens. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Sounds about right. So yeah, with that, I think it's time to wrap up another shorter episode here tonight. So if you guys want to help us out, please do us a favor and head on over to iTunes to write us a review. Of course, we will read it live on our recordings. And, we're always looking for ways to improve the show. If you would like to support our podcast network, consider pledging to our Patreon page, where we have tiers starting at just $1 a month. And, you too can join the likes of our master and above patrons, Daniel, Owl, Kesha, Agent Life, and 044 in helping our network grow. So thank you again, everyone who's been checking that out and helping us along the way. And as for contacting us, you can also do that a number of different ways. So, Ed, please let them know how they can do that.
All right. So you can reach us through email over at hndoverwatch@gmail.com. We are on Twitter, and that's at hndoverwatch. You can check out our website at owlnshow.com. We are on YouTube at youtube.com/Overwatch League Network. We do have a Discord, and that's discord.me/OWLNshow. We are streaming live on Twitch at twitch.tv/OWLNshow. We are a Twitch affiliate, so help support the show by subscribing to our channel and earn our network emoticon. We do stream pretty regularly. So on Mondays at 6 p.m. Pacific, we have the Overwatch League Network. On Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, we have OWL by the Numbers, which is our fantasy Overwatch podcast. And then Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific, we have this show, Heroes Never Die. And then Thursdays at 5 p.m. Pacific, except for tomorrow, we recorded that before this, we do Tavern Tales, our Hearthstone Battlegrounds podcast, over at twitch.tv/TavernTalesHS. You can follow me personally on Twitter, and that's at Edinar83, or on Twitch at twitch.tv/Edinar. Totem, where can they find you?
Well, you can reach out to me via Twitter at TumblyDrunk, and I also stream on Twitch at twitch.tv/TumblyDrunk. All right, guys, well, that's going to do it for us here tonight on Heroes Never Die. This has been episode 215. I've been your host, TumblyDrunk, joined, as always, by my co-host, Edinar. And, we hope to see you in Discord over the weekend, should you join in for all of the Summer Showdown discussion that will be happening. And, of course, if not, we will see you guys back here next week. Take care and enjoy your weekend.
Peace out, y'all.